So I know we'd have a lot of green in today's video, so I figured, well, why not complement that then with a bold red lip? You know, I'm all about those complementary colors. What's shakin' bacon? I'm Joni Simon. Welcome to my studio. This is where I do food photography. So if you're into that, you go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And today we're talking about garnish, and specifically the green types of garnish, and the most popular ones that are typically found in food photography, like the mint, the basil, dill, parsley. So we're gonna go through what are some of the ways that you can ensure that these stay fresh looking and fabulous so that your food looks fly. Dude, that's a lot of alliteration. Now, you've heard me say this before if you've spent any time on this channel. If you haven't and you're new, glad you're here. And so my biggest recommendation is to always grow your own at home. And anybody who's like, that's impossible, I can't do that because this, that, and the other. Well, I live in the middle of the Sonoran Desert. It has been 100+ degrees for the last however many months. It feels like forever. It is hotter than Hades outside, yet I can still grow some beautiful herbs in my own backyard, and they make the food just look that much better because they look super fresh and vibrant, like my fresh mint, fresh basil. I've got sage, which is going to be perfect when I start doing those fall and holiday dishes. I also sometimes grow cilantro. It's been a little finicky on me, but anytime there's a garnish that I need that I can't grow here at home or I don't have, I always go to a top quality grocer in order to get those so that I ensure that they look their best, that they are super fresh. And so for me, I get them at Whole Foods, but definitely, of course, the trick is to look for the top quality garnish. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about not only how to store those and to keep them looking fresh so that they are ready when you're ready to shoot, but also what you're looking for in kind of the perfect specimen for food photography. So let's go through just some of the most popular herbs. So first we'll start out with basil because I've got some sitting right here. It's super fragrant. I love the smell of basil. And these are actually two different varieties from my garden. I have a third variety that's a purple, but it's just not looking super cute right now. The heat has kind of taken its toll, but I've got this beautiful fresh basil. I also have a more traditional basil with those really full, fabulous leaves. So of course, any herb, there are tons of different varieties. So the thing with basil, of course, is that it is very delicate, but first when it comes to storing it, of course you can store it on the plant, but if you don't have it on the plant, then just put the cut ends in a glass of water, little mason jar right here. You don't want to fully submerge the entire green, and then keep it out on the countertop just at a nice room temperature. Don't stick it in the fridge. These little guys don't really like the fridge. It's going to cause them to start to brown and start to look a little sad more quickly than if you just left them on the countertop, just like a bouquet of flowers in a little glass of water here. And then of course it's really fun to garnish with just like a little collection of leaves, like stick that in the side of a salad or a pasta. But if you're going to chiffonade your basil, so you're gonna, roll that up and slice it super duper thin, be sure that is one of the very last things that you do before you shoot, just because the basil bruises so easily. You'll see just in a matter of minutes that it'll start to turn kind of a purpley brown color and it'll look a lot less appealing. So just make sure that when you're using basil, that is the very last thing you're adding. All right, so next we have chives and scallions, which to me, kind of bears similar resemblance as well as treatment. And so the best way to store these is just in a sealed plastic bag in the refrigerator. That's going to help keep them nice and bright and happy and firm. But just do be sure there's not a lot of excess moisture going on. Don't wash these as soon as you get home. Wait to wash them until you're actually ready to work with them. Or if you're like me, if you're using this for a food styling project, just don't wash it because the water will definitely start to contribute to the decay factor on these. And then as far as actually preparing them, of course, when it comes to scallions, people are like, do you just use the whites? Do you just use the greens? Definitely use both. I love to use both. But one of my favorite things to do is when slicing them, both for scallions and for chives, is to slice them on the bias so that you get sort of an interesting surface area, a bit of a different shape with them. It adds a little bit of just visual interest and kind of breaks things up a little bit. And two, one of the other things I love to do with scallions is is just on that little white part, because you've got sort of all those inner rings, is that especially if you're putting it on a soup or a salad, is you kind of take a couple of those and bust them up so that all those little rings kind of create these little visual pops of interest. Just something to try. All right, next up we have dill. I love dill because I love things that have dill in it. Again, the smells going on here today make me so happy. So as you can see, I have stored the dill in the refrigerator because I bought this at Whole Foods. I stored it in water and then stored it in the fridge. That's the best way to keep the dill nice and happy and fresh. Of course, don't wash it, because the second you add water to that, it's going to start to add to the decay process. And then the other thing is, when you add this to food, and so you're going to garnish with this, do not spritz this, because the second water gets on it, they really start to get sad and droopy on you. You know, you really want this sort of springy effect. And the thing that you're looking for when you're looking for really great dill is sort of this uniformity, right? Like, you look at this piece and it's not like there's this piece coming off over here and piece coming. I'm sure I could find an example of a bad piece of dill in the midst of all this. Like this guy, you know, he's just a little bit more sparse in terms of the actual little fronds. And he's kind of this uniform, kind of murky green, as opposed to this piece, which all came off of the same exact fronds here. But this one's got a lot more yellows in it. It's a little bit more vibrant, and it's got a lot more of these tiny little sprigs bursting up. It's just gonna make it, when we garnish this on our dip or on our deviled eggs or something, wherever this is gonna go, it's gonna read a lot more lively and fresh. All right, I'm gonna end up in a forest by the end of this video. Let's move everything out of the way here. Okay, next up we have the mint. And the best way to store your mint is to, you know, if you've bought it at the grocery store, is to get a nice paper towel, like a good sturdy paper towel, like the good old Brawny that I use for food styling. Get it damp and make sure to get all the excess moisture. We don't want it super duper wet. And then put your mint on the inside of that, roll it up, and then you can just stick it straight in the fridge, which is what I do. Or if you're very concerned, you can stick it in a plastic baggie, but that will keep it really nice and firm and springy and happy and smelling good. And so when we're also looking for mint, it's very similar to how we look for sort of that grouping and that configuration for the dill, is that we want kind of these nice little tight groupings. And I feel like sometimes it's a little more challenging when it comes to mint, but something like this, where it's nice and tight and it's not kind of like all over the place. But even this example right here is not pristine, because we've got some little browning and some little spots. So I find it sometimes to be very tricky to find good quality mint. Again, a reason that I like to grow my own, but sadly with all the traveling we did recently, everything that's been going on here, I didn't keep up with the mint, and they all kind of putzed out on me in the heat. So the mint here at the ranchito has not survived quite as well. So I did buy this at Whole Foods, and I'm not loving it. But oh, here we go. This one's good. And so we can take this little guy right here. See, this is kind of a superior example. Now here's the other thing too, though, with mint, is there are so many different varieties. There's actually, according to the internet, and the internet never lies, there are over 600 varieties of mint. And so the mint that I typically grow here at the house, which I've cut back and will hopefully be back and ready in action here in a couple weeks, has a really nice sort of floral feel to it, kind of more similar to the way this basil reads. It's kind of these pretty little buds. It's a little softer. It's not quite as scaly. You know, a lot of the mint that we see sometimes is kind of got this scaliness, which might really work, and I think works really excellently for beverages. But sometimes when it comes to dessert, this can be a bit distracting. So it's just all about finding the right leaf for what you're going for and keeping it nice and fresh. All right, now we are into, hold on, gotta rearrange here. Now we're into the parsley, and as perhaps you're aware, there's sort of the two different varieties. There's the curly parsley, right, like we've got here, and you can just see I'm storing it in a bag. One of the things that I do love about parsley is that it is a lot less delicate in comparison to a lot of other herbs. Like this stuff kind of holds up pretty well. It's fairly happy. You just keep it in the plastic bag and it'll do great. And so this is the curly as opposed to the flat leaf Italian. And so it's really helpful, I think, to know what is the difference of when you would use one over the other. Now, of course, if the particular recipe that you're styling calls for one or the other, be sure to use that. I find that flat leaf parsley, you're going to use that a lot more when you are doing restaurant work. This is a lot more of what you will see in restaurants generally and chefs using. And of course, Italian Italian recipes. And so this is a really great version of it. Like, this is a really great parsley that we've got going on here. You can see again, it's got this nice uniformity. It's a nice kind of tight bunch there. It's also got just a little bit of elevation on it. So you'll see when you place this, it won't read flat, and you don't want it to look limp and sad. And so this is a really great springy, happy flat leaf parsley. It's only a little flat, right? That's just gonna look so good on a steak or on some pasta. The other thing about flat leaf parsley is to make sure that it isn't too dark. This is definitely a darker herb, and so you want to make sure that you are picking leaves that have a little bit more brightness and a little green to them, like this particular one. If they're too dark, they're gonna read black on your food, and it's just not gonna look super appetizing. But then the curly, my favorite way to use the curly is anytime I need a parsley that I'm gonna sprinkle on top of something. So maybe that's potatoes or a side dish or a casserole or something that we know we're gonna chop it and sprinkle it, just because that curly is gonna give a lot more texture. It's not gonna read flat. It's gonna have some ridges and some personality. So that's when I like to use the curly parsley. All right, and very last, one of the most controversial herbs. It's not controversial, it's just this particular herb, there are people who are predisposed to tasting this herb differently. It tastes either like feet or it tastes like soap to them, but I personally love cilantro. Some people also in various places of the world call this coriander. And so we have got our cilantro here, and the best way to store it, as you can see, I had the stems down inside of the water, kept in the fridge, but then the trick is to keep the plastic bag over it too. If you do that combination, these will actually stay really nice and fresh for up to a week. Really great little secret there. And now, just like our basil earlier, this is also a very delicate herb. And if you've ever worked with this, you know the second you place it on any kind of hot food, it just dies on you. So you want to make sure to have plenty of this on hand. Same thing goes for all of these herbs. If you are doing food styling for a shoot, be sure to buy plenty of the garnish, because inevitably you'll do a couple of shots and then you're gonna wanna reshoot and you'll be like, I need to freshen that up. So just swapping those herbs out. And so this is one of those things though that will die on you very quickly, and very similar to the basil, the second you start chopping it up, if you want to sprinkle it on something, that it is going to start to brown and start to decay on you pretty quickly. So that is the best way though to stir your cilantro. So now I feel like I'm just like in the middle of the jungle here. I've got all the herbs going on. So hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you got a couple ideas. Certainly if there are other things that you know about keeping your herbs fresh and looking vibrant and fabulous, or other herbs that I didn't mention in this video that you want to share some insights on, got the comment section below. It's always great to share, and certainly feel free to tag me. I am over on Instagram at The Bite Shot. I always love to see what you're working on. And so with that, hope you have a fantastic day. Keep it green and mean and lean, and you stay out of trouble, and I'll see you soon. Okay? Bye.
Is this all basil?
What are these?
I don't.
Which one are these?
Mint.
Nope, it's cilantro.
Cilantro.
What's that one?
Basil.
No.
Dill.
Mm-hmm.
And then basil.
Uh-huh.
Basil.
Uh-huh.
2 basil.
Ooh. Do you know if you say herbs or herbs?
Herbs.
You looking at yourself?
Yeah.
Do you look cute?
Yeah.
The cutest?
It,
Yep.
it looks like I'm cute on the camera.